If you can't touch the trigger without the gun going off, then you got no business touching the trigger unless you're shooting it, and you probably should only shoot at the range. You shouldn't carry a gun.
In this series, we head to Boondocks Firearms Training Academy with trainers Chris and Michelle Serino. Chris and Michelle spend time in a training simulator, and we get an inside look into their mindset during some fast-paced, violent encounters.
Holy crap. I'm scared. Hey! Oh, one of my favorites. This is one of my absolute favorites. I'm waiting in line at the convenience store. Nothing wrong, nothing bad can happen. So I'm in line, things look good, everything looks normal. I'm not really concerned because nothing ever happens. Nobody looks freaked out, nobody's upset. This guy's wasting our time. I'm starting to get a little upset, but I'm not gonna go nuts and shoot anybody. Holy crap. I'm moving towards cover. There's a shotgun out. There's a guy in here with a shotgun. I don't know what's going on. I'm hoping I got a good piece of cover right now. I'm scared. Hey! Jiminy Christmas. Whew. I knew that's where, well, at least I thought that's where he was. Hopefully I had good cover. Shot him in the neck. Yeah. Yeah, good thing my backstop was solid. Well, that's a scenario where you have to move towards cover. You got to create distance again. Even as law enforcement, you've got to create distance, get to cover, do whatever is right. Sometimes closing the distance would be good, but I don't know. Here, I'm not familiar with that store, but even a rack of potato chips is better than standing in the open. The rule says, you don't touch the trigger until your sights are on target and you're ready to fire. So we don't let people touch the trigger. We don't teach people about firing from the pressure wall. What we teach is reset, which has absolutely nothing to do with firing a shot. The pressure wall is the opposite side of the reset. I'm at the pressure wall, ready to fire that gun, but it's a conscious decision to press that trigger. But with this guy, that's my danger area. I'm absolutely sure of my target, my backstop, and beyond. My target area is that counter. I'm at the pressure wall. If I had jumped from the side of the frame to that trigger to make that shot in that instant, what kind of shot would I have gotten?
Right.
It would have been low left, because I'm a right-handed shooter and I would have slapped the shit out of that trigger.
Yeah.
But instead, when he presented, all I had to do was press it. If you can't touch the trigger without the gun going off, then you got no business touching the trigger unless you're shooting it, and you probably should only shoot at the range. You shouldn't carry a gun. So I'm standing in the convenience store line, and this guy up front of me is wasting my time by talking it up with the lady behind the counter. But what happens is somebody comes in behind the counter and I don't think they're supposed to be there. A little bit of an argument ensues, and I think, well, maybe I'm gonna have to help out. But then he pulls out a shotgun. He starts threatening her. I can't go right to guns. I'm standing right here. I don't know everything that's going on inside this store. So I start backing up. I move to a position of cover, and as I'm thinking about getting my gun out, he shoots her. Now I know I've got to do something. He shoots her and he drops behind the counter. My gun comes out and I'm waiting for him to materialize from behind the counter. So as I'm sitting here, I'm already on the trigger at the pressure wall, and I'm thinking, man, if this guy comes up with that gun, I'm gonna shoot. He presents just for a short amount of time, a very small target, and I press off that well-aimed shot. I'm gonna tell you what I was doing with my trigger, but first I'm gonna unload this gun. So I've unloaded this gun. I've got this Springfield XDM model, which is a perfect trigger for this type of technique. We call this the committed trigger technique. So if I was aimed in at that counter, waiting for that guy to materialize, what I would have had to do was, with my finger alongside the frame, I'd have to jump down there, and I'd have all that disturbance in the gun, I'd have to acquire the target, and then I'd have to still press the trigger. So it's likely that I could get a bad shot off, or it might not be a good shot fast enough. So what I was doing was, I've got the bad guy, or at least where I think he's going to materialize, in my sights, and I'm already not just touching the trigger, but through that first stage, that slack, I'm at the pressure wall. So when he materializes, all I've got to do is press that trigger. So you could train this technique, live fire or dry fire, on a range. And what I do is I teach people to get used to moving to that trigger, move to that pressure wall through that first stage so that the gun doesn't go off. Now what a lot of people will do is they'll come through it and they'll get too much trigger finger, too much pressure, maybe a little too hard on the trigger, and they'll accidentally set the gun off. Well, dry fire or on a range, live fire, that's not really an issue, but it's something that you need to learn. So get used to coming to that pressure wall, and from there is where every round is fired. So when we train to use that pressure wall, our shots become much better because we're not moving through that slack. We're firing every shot from exactly where it was designed to be fired, from the pressure wall. That's the technique I used in this scenario, and that's the technique I would use if I thought that I was definitely going to have to deliver deadly force in a very quick and accurate fashion.